and welcome to the Freakacast.
Yay!
I am Andrew Felson.
And I am Matthew Puetz.
And today is our second episode.
Yay!
There we go.
We made it to number 2.
We made it to number 2, the second one. We forgot to address some issues first time around. Namely, how many we'll be doing in a row in terms of our release dates.
And when we actually, send this out.
One of the reasons why it took so long to put up online to begin with was there was a lot of things I didn't know about podcasting because neither one of us are professionals.
Or really know anything about websites or the internet that much other than how to surf.
And I foolishly believe that because I put this on a thing that was called GarageBand and it had a little button that says upload to iTunes, and I thought it was as simple as that, and I was very wrong. So, very foolishly.
But,
But thankfully, we figured it all out, and
we're now officially on iTunes.
We are now officially on iTunes. We're going to be pimping that address in a minute. If you found us through iTunes, we will also be telling you where to find the home site. But first and foremost, due to scheduling issues, because Matt and I aren't always around each other, we're going to be shooting for at least one episode a month. That is going to be our hopeful minimum, 2 if we're lucky. So we're going to shoot for 1 a month. And
I think 1 a month is good. That way we have enough time to come up with ideas.
Yes, and we can work them out and have well thought out plans instead of just coming up here speaking and mumbling and having no incoherence and all sorts of funny things.
It might happen anyway.
Might happen anyway, like right now. So anyway, the actual website that we have this hosted on is on my blog. It's currently called Andrew's Brain. It's not called the Freakacast, and unfortunately, that's also what it's being called on iTunes. I may fix that one day, but because I know so little about RSS feeds and things of that nature, it may take some time to fix.
But hopefully we can fix that.
But one day, I mean, I want to establish this first before I mess around with the the feeds and all that. So at the moment, that's the way it'll kind of stay. So on iTunes, if you want to search for us, it's going to be under Andrew's Brain. But you can also find us if you type in the Freakacast, because that works as well.
Yes.
But the actual site that we're hosting this on is on WordPress, and you don't need the 3 W's before it, so it's on Felson, that's spelled AFELSON 1.wordpress.com. And that'll bring you to my blog, and you can find, there's a drop-down thing that'll have the categories, and it'll be under podcast. As well as for iTunes, I told you the best way to find it by searching for Andrew's Brain or the Freakacast, but if you want a specific address, it is on itunes.apple.com/podcast/andrewsbrain/ID 399125935. I know that was quite a bit. That's where you'll find us.
What did you say?
It was itunes.apple.com/podcast/andrewsbrain/ID 399125935.
Okay, that's much clearer.
Just so we're all clear on that. And now we get to a fun part where we do shout-outs. Yay! Yay for shout-outs. Matt, who do you want to shout out to?
Hi, Mom.
Yes, hi.
If you're actually listening to this, Mom, this is kind of weird.
Yes, we have some websites to pimp, as they say.
I'll get to mine later. You do yours first.
Yes, the first and, at the moment, most important one to pimp is Songs to Wear Pants To for providing the very awesome theme song that we've been graced with.
Yay!
And also he was one of the artists I used for the first podcast. He composed This Girl instrumental. And you can find full music listings on the Pog. The Pog. Yes, the things we used to play as kids.
I was going to say, you're bringing up Pog. That's so 90s of you.
Yes, it's very 90s. A stupid fad I wish I never did because I wasted a lot of money. Yes, on my blog. Not Pog. A blog! Although Pogs on blogs would be fun.
Or if you did a blog on Pogs.
Yes, how useless would that be?
Not as useless as Pogs were.
I don't know. Some of those slammers were kind of neat.
No, they were still useless.
Yeah, they were. Well, no, if you were throwing them at people, slammers would hurt.
That's true. I was usually the one getting them thrown at, not the one doing the throwing.
Aw. So, I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, yes, on the blog you'll find the full listing of the music I used. His was the second, The first one was a little note of tag up on the first where both of us forgot the name of the composer for the Freakazoid theme, and that man was Richard Stone and his composing team. So he is responsible for that. So big shout out to that.
Yes, awesome Richard Stone. Gave us lots of great theme songs and just songs in general that we grew up with as kids.
Yeah, so definitely a big thanks to him. Sadly, he is no longer with us. So he will be, but he is fondly remembered for his music.
Yes.
But anyway, songstowearpants2.com is where you yourself can get custom-made songs as well as download some things he's made.
The good thing is you don't actually have to be wearing pants when you listen to these songs, so...
Yes. The nice man is named... I know his first name is also Andrew, but I don't know his last. Mostly he's referred to as Andrew Pants. So we'll go with that. It's a fun name to say.
Andrew Pants.
Yes. And the second website I want to plug is newgrounds.com, where I also got a majority of the music I used. That wasn't classical music that I got from Matt.
Yay.
So newgrounds.com and then the audio portal, where you can also download these songs for free because they are royalty free as long as you credit the author, which I did. And now Matt has a website he'd like to plug because we're going to get into our topic.
Yes. Today on the second episode of the Freakacast. And this actually makes a lot of sense to me because Freakazoid was a Warner Brothers cartoon. And guess what else Warner Brothers came out with? Batman. My favorite character of all time. And I'm really looking forward to this podcast. However, there has been some recent news. And I'm only going to touch on this briefly because we'll get into more of it in depth later. Is that they just released the title of the new Batman movie. It's called The Dark Knight Rises. The other thing that they came out and said was they confirmed that the Riddler will not be the villain. Yes, I know a lot of people were thinking, well, wait a minute. I thought Johnny Depp was cast the Riddler. No, that was purely a rumor. In fact, they're still working on the script right now. They haven't even finished the script. When that rumor came out, they hadn't even started the script. In fact, Chris Nolan was still working on Inception. And he's kind of like me. He can only do one thing at a time. He's not a multitasker. So, whatever you've heard, ignore it. Unless you have read it on batmanonfilm.com. That's batman-on-film.com.
Okay? Is that a hyphen?
Hyphen, the little line.
If you Google it, I'm sure you can find it.
Yes. Just Google it, you'll find it. That site is the only credible source of Batman information that I have found. IMDb gets casting information wrong. If you hear it on comingsoon.net, probably not true, because they get a lot of rumors. However, batmanonfilm.com is completely rumor-free. They only post information that has been officially free. They only post information that has been officially confirmed. Not only that, but the guy who runs the site, Bill Jet Raimi, is pretty much on a first-name basis with Chris Nolan. In fact, he actually got invited to the premiere of The Dark Knight out in New York. Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
And just a brief explanation on that site. Bill, when he originally created that site, he started that site a year after Batman and Robin came out, essentially because of how crappy Batman and Robin was. And we'll get to that later.
We are definitely going to get to that because that's going to be part of our topic.
Yes.
And by the way, for those wondering, another bit of information we know is that the newest Dark Knight movie will be released in 2012, tentatively.
Yes, July 20th, 2012.
But of course, that is, release dates can always change just depending on production. So that's the slated tentative date.
True.
Anyway, as you've probably guessed, we're going to talk about Batman today. So this will be Freakacast Episode 2, Freaks in a Batcave. Or something like that. And,
we might change the title.
Yes. So, Batman. If you don't know who he is, shame on you.
Yes, if you don't know who he is,
what hole did you live under and where can I find it?
If you lived in a hole, then you'd probably be in with bats, in which case you should have at least come up with the idea of Batman. But no, seriously, if you don't know who Batman is, you're un-American and you should be shot on sight.
Well, it's not like people from other countries don't know who Batman is either.
Like I said, he's an American icon. People around the world know who he is. Right. You have no excuse.
But there is he's been around for many years. How long, Matt? I'm not good at math. 70 years. he's been around a while, but there is, obviously some people may not know the actual history of the character because they can say Batman and a mental picture of either the current Batman or some of the previous incarnations of the character will come to mind, but they may not know where he came from. He was created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. There's the two who are credited with his creation.
Yes, although Bob Kane got the majority of the credit.
Yes.
However, Bill Finger did give certain notes.
Such as?
Such as changing the color scheme. Originally, Bob wanted the character to be all in black. However, when you're drawing a comic book, doing a character all in black isn't exactly very effective to the reader because you can't do any kind of shading, obviously. You can't do any detail. And so it became very much a problem just in terms of the artwork. So Bill came along and said, well, why don't you make the bodysuit maybe gray and the accents like the mask, the cape, the boots, the gloves, and the briefs blue. And that's actually where it started. Little known fact, when Batman first came out, he carried a gun.
And when did he first come out?
1939.
It was in Detective Comics number 27, which I'm sure is a big collector's item and worth quite a bit of money, and I've never seen it in my life. So.
Yeah, and we probably never will, no matter how much we'd like to, at least be able to say, hey, we saw it.
I would like to read it, not so much like in my hand, but I would like to see a copy just to see what the writing was like, because I've never seen a comic book that old. Really? I've never read one that old, which is weird.
I actually have a compilation comic book that has a bunch of stories from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even the 70s.
Oh, we'll have to check that out. He was pretty much a instant hit. The public liked him quite a bit, and so he pretty much got his own comic book series, much like Superman eventually did, although I don't know when he got his.
The year before.
So Batman got his own comic book in 1940, so just a year later, got his own comic book, and that very same year, not only was the Joker introduced, but Robin as well. So for those of you who keep thinking, oh, Robin, he came way later, he was just a tag on. No, Robin was there from almost the very beginning. So
yes, and that's one thing when I hear people say that, oh, I don't really like Robin. It's like, really? Robin has just as much longevity as Batman does.
I mean, we're gonna get to Robin later, I think, because he's a good character.
Yeah,
he was
when done well.
When done well, he's a good character. I mean, he was always getting the short end of the stick, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think so.
It was pretty much a fact that he certainly helped the readership of Batman increase because he was a good character. They liked him.
Well, not only that,
he was a good appeal for the kid readership.
Right, and that was actually the main reason that they introduced the character of Robin. They wanted a kid character that kids could identify with. Now, you're talking the 1940s. It was, not considered appropriate for a kid to be a superhero. That was the thing of adults. But having a kid sidekick made it work. And so kids were able to read it, and they were able to kind of see themselves in the eyes of Robin and go along with the story.
Mm-hmm. And over time, obviously, we know that'll shift because they pretty much figured out that, oh, yeah, kids fantasize about being superheroes. So, but the sidekick thing is still around. I don't think as much anymore.
It's changed.
It has.
You still have team-ups, but even the relationship between Batman and Robin has changed. If you look at the way it was handled in the comics in the 40s versus the way it was handled in the comics in the 70s versus the way it's handled in the comics now, completely different. But the core aspects are still there. And that's why we love these characters.
Yes, and we're going to jump right into that in terms of how did we find out about Batman?
We had very different introductions to the character.
We do. And Matt, I think you should go first. Since you are the bigger Batman fan, it's you, sir, have the floor.
All right. I want to say thank you, Dad, because you pretty much got me hooked on this thing.
You hear that, Mr. Puetz? It's your fault.
Yes, it's actually both my parents' fault, but for different reasons. No, Dad... certainly, when I was a kid, probably about 5 or 6, I know we were living in our new house, or old house now, but newer house at the time. We watched the Batman 60 show, starting Adam West and Burt Ward. And when you're a 5 or 6-year-old, you take that show dead serious. I mean, that is Batman. And especially in the fact that it's live action, you could I mean, you perceive that as not necessarily being real, but a lot more real than a cartoon. I can't tell you how many times they made cardboard batarangs and grappling hooks, and I think I must have cut a couple of miles of string just trying to hook things. But there was an appeal there, and especially, and obviously the show was designed to be a comedy, but when you're a kid, you just enjoy it, and it's got a sensibility to it that you can't help but enjoy, no matter how old you are. And certainly, that show got me hooked. But it wasn't just that show that got me hooked. I had always been fascinated with vampires and bats and that sort of thing. And so, obviously, when I saw that, hey, there's a character that uses a bat as a theme, I was like, man, this is awesome.
And to some degree, like a weapon.
Yes.
Because he's got, the batarangs and the bat equipment. And the bat everything.
Yes, the bat everything. And never mind the bat shark repellent, but, the Batmobile was cool. I mean, and an interesting thing about that specific car that they built for the show is that everything worked.
That's cool.
Any kind of lever or smoke thing or whatever actually worked. It was not a special effect.
That's pretty cool.
I believe the man's name was George Harris, and he did a lot of custom-built cars for movies. For instance, the Ecto-1.
Nice.
So
I'm a big Ghostbusters fan, so that's
we'll save that for another one. But,
yeah.
But hey, the same guy gave us both an awesome Batmobile. Well, actually, no, he did the 60s Batmobile, and he also did the Batman 89 Batmobile.
Oh, cool. I was just a Batman car guy.
He was. Well, he was a car guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, you guys, have seen American Chopper. He was to the chopper guys, or to cars what these chopper guys are to bikes. He did a lot of custom work, especially in movies. I don't know what he's up to now, but he definitely does a lot of cool stuff.
So I would guess that the 60s show was being on like Nick at Night at that time?
Yes, Nick at Night. Oh, God, I remember Nick at Night. The only problem was it wasn't always in the afternoon. It was usually, there were a couple occasions it was late at night, like 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And when you're 6, 11 o'clock is, very late at night.
Yeah, that's pretty late.
So I think there was only one instance where I was actually allowed to stay up late to watch Batman.
When did it was it like on a like TBS or something, or like a Superstation, or
no, just Nick at Night.
But it was on in the afternoon?
It wasn't. If I remember correct, wow, this is so long ago I can barely remember. It wasn't on that often.
Okay.
It wasn't on every night. It wasn't on at the same time.
So that whole same bat time, same bat channel thing didn't always work?
It never made sense to me. That was the weirdest thing, is when the show first came out, the first episode was on a Wednesday night, the next episode was on that following Thursday night. So when they said, if you've seen the episodes on YouTube, which is right now the only way to watch it, because
we'll get to that.
Anyway, you see, stay tuned tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. Well, when you can't see it always at the same time on every day, the whole thing just doesn't make sense to you. It's like, but I can't watch it tomorrow. Why should I stay tuned? But, you're 6 years old, you're really not paying attention to that. After, when the show gets to either it's the first episode, which has the cliffhanger. Mm-hmm.
Or the conclusion episode.
Or the conclusion episode, you're just like, oh my God, that was awesome. You're such at a high because you just got to watch Batman. You don't care what anybody else, what's coming afterwards. You just want to see more Batman.
I completely missed that show.
Unfortunately.
When I was little, I was not a live-action TV show guy. I was very much stuck in cartoons.
Yes, and see, I was always about live action.
Yeah. Shame. So which brings me to where I first saw Batman, because, like I said, I'm sure I must have heard something about Batman somewhere. Because, I think my dad used to watch Batman when he was, watching TV, but, I never saw the show, because, like you said, sometimes it was on way too late, and I couldn't stay up at that point.
Yeah.
So, my very first seeing a Batman anything all the way through was actually on the Batman Tim Burton movie, which came out in 1989, and I think I was 6 at the time. So, and we went to theaters and see it. And that was my very first seeing of Batman anything. And right away, 2 things. 1, this is awesome. 2, that guy getting fried is really scary.
So yeah, I unfortunately do not have that memory because when Batman came out in '89, I was, according to my parents, too young to see it.
Just so strange because I'm a year younger than you are, so it's weird. But my parents were like, "Yeah, why not?"
We both have agreed that our parents are vastly different from each other.
I know, but it's so strange looking back. Like, I don't know why my parents brought me to see that movie because that's so not a little kid. Like, I don't think a 6-year-old should see that movie.
No, I mean, it is rated PG-13 for a reason.
So I don't know why they thought I was fine with it, but I do very remember having when the guy got blasted, like with the electric joy buzzer.
Yeah.
I remember very clearly that my mom looking over to me saying, "Did that scare you?" And I just kind of nod, and she's like, "You want to leave?" And I'm like, "No, I want to see what happens." And so I stayed the course, watched the whole movie, and thankfully that didn't bother me, and it didn't deter me from seeing Batman in the future. And I eventually...
Nor did it cause you to become a serial killer, so that's a good...
No, it did not. So that was my very first time seeing Batman. And of course, like once I saw it and I figured out who he was and I got more into comic books in general, like I wasn't a big comic book guy, but I did read certain comic books. Ironically, I never had a Batman comic book until the animated series came out and they released a couple comic books based on that I have a Batman comic. But I knew enough. I started to know enough about the character to know what he was and what he did. In terms of, he had no superpowers, but he was this guy. He's Bruce Wayne. His parents are killed in front of him by just a mugger, and he decides that he's going to devote his life to fighting crime and preventing what happened to him to happen to anybody else. And that's an inspiring thing because it's one of those things like, okay, it's not a guy with powers from another world or some guy who gets bitten by a radioactive spider. Stuff that, like, as a little kid, you think that's, even as a little kid, you're like, that's just my imagination. That'll never happen to me. But you can conceive as a kid, all right, he's like a more high-tech cop. Or it's like a guy who with no powers, but going at it like, I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to take it with stuff that I can make and fight crime. And that way you can really identify with it like being, okay, this is something I could maybe do.
Yes.
Or it's just like, all right, I can totally get into this. Or it's like, I'll buy this. Even if sometimes it is a little unbelievable.
Not only was it inspiring from that end, but I know for me it was inspiring the character in it because I really enjoyed it, still do, how the character itself, Batman, not Bruce Wayne, but Batman, was born out of tragedy. And that's something that you don't see a lot. You don't see a lot of times how one man can turn his tragedy into something as a force for good.
Yeah, usually it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Where you see guys with tragic tales, they become villains. But thankfully, Batman took it in a positive light.
Yes.
Granted, he was forever changed. I mean, I know in the mythos of the character, he pretty much says that the night that happened to his parents, Bruce Wayne died and Batman was born. So there was the Bruce Wayne you see is...
I'm proud of you.
Yes. That'll probably be the height of my knowledge.
That's okay. That is the key right there. If you understand that concept, that the night Bruce's parents were murdered, Bruce Wayne died and Batman was born, that is the key concept of the character. But
before we one of the things we're going to be covering is pretty much because there's so much Batman to talk about, we could be here for days, and this will probably be a two-parter.
I would never get bored.
Yes, this will probably be a two-part episode. Bear with us, folks. We're going to be talking about mostly the live-action films in order, and we'll be running those down. And we'll probably get back to those one day as well, just for bits of interest, especially when we get more information on the newer Batman film coming out. But we're going to at least mention some of the other medias that Batman has appeared in, such as like cartoons and TV shows, things of that nature. But first, and more importantly, I feel, how has Batman influenced us in our daily lives and things we're interested in? And Matt has a large list, so I'll go first. Because
Good idea.
Yeah, because mine will wrap up real quick, even though I'm sure, stop talking, that guy, and let the other one talk. I tend to write quite a bit more than Matt does. I mean, he's written more scripts than I have, but I would...
Not really. I've only written 3 scripts, but I read them, 50 times a piece, so I feel like I've written a lot.
I guess that's true, plus I helped out, but we'll talk about that later.
That's another podcast.
Yes. because I've majored in journalism as well as film in college, I had to do quite a bit of writing, and I've also had to study quite a bit of different bits of media, as well as because I did film, I had to study quite a bit of film, and I've actually written a couple scripts. Some need quite a bit of work before I can even call them good. I would say some of the things I take in terms of my writing, not my style, but like what I do to write for a character. In terms of Batman, I can consider a somewhat realistic character to write for, because this is a guy who has to work within the environment he's in. With Superman, you can invent a power because he's Superman. If the script called for it, he could, fly over the roofs and build rainbows coming out of lower parts. I don't want to get too graphic in case there's kids listening.
No, I'm just kind of impressed that you remember that. I'm like, didn't we? We did. Oh, yeah, the rainbow.
Yeah. And, that's kind of the thing that I always I'm not a hater on Superman, but it's one of the things that bothers me about Superman in terms of his powers can change depending on who's writing for him. And if the script calls for it, they can make a superpower for him. That's why I really don't like the first couple movies for him. I just can't get into it as much as other people. So it's tougher for me to identify with that. But with Batman, though, he has to work within the environment, and he's human. So you have to make it work. And granted, in some movies and incarnations, the technology he has can be a little bit more elaborate. But that's fine, because you can work within that universe. And to me, that's a good way to base your writing.
And especially if you've introduced the character into that universe and you presented that universe as is, you accept whatever happens.
Yeah, so...
as long as it fits within the universe.
So that's kind of my getting over a mental block for writing for something, because like if I introduce it as this is a legit way to do things in this what I'm writing, and it works in the continuity of what I'm writing for that character or in that world in general, then that's definitely passable and works. So that's what I really take from Batman in terms of this is how you can write a character in a more realistic setting. Granted, some things about the character is definitely comic book, movie only, but that's part of the love of why we like it. So that's what I really draw from Batman, other than the fact that I really like the character. Now, Matt. Matt has quite a bit of things.
Okay, so you guys might want to sit down for this one. Go to the bathroom first if you need to, actually.
Well, you can, if they're having iPods, they can take this with them.
Okay.
Which might be creepy, but...
I'll just pretend I didn't hear that.
Because one of your things goes way back into your childhood, so let's hear it, my friend.
Batman is one of those things that once it got into my life, not only did it ever go out, it's become a part of my life. It's become a part of me. I mean, to simply say that I'm a fan is an understatement.
Yes.
Because the character actually, I mean, I know it sounds cheesy, but the character has helped me become the person I am. A lot of the sensibilities of the character, the respect for human life, even though people, like Batman has never killed the Joker. No matter how much the Joker may torture the citizens of Gotham, Batman will never kill him.
Or no matter how much he deserves it.
And that is something that I respect. I know, a lot of people might not, but I respect the fact that, sometimes the idea of killing somebody to get rid of a problem is not the way to go.
No, and I think that has kind of transcended to other comic books characters and other genres as well, because quite a bit of the modern day superheroes don't do that either. Batman is certainly the iconic for that role, but obviously you don't hear too much of Spider-Man never kills anybody.
True.
And that's also part of his mythos.
It is, but it's more than just the mythos. It's the fact that Batman as a character repeats it.
Yes.
He's very much, when other characters around him are suggesting it, he takes it to a whole new level. And it's part of me. In addition to that...
So it's good to know that you no matter how much I know you, you'll never kill me.
It's just that one of those things is, it's a lot of the morals and values that are part of that character, that part of their mythos, I've adopted.
Yeah, so it's okay to beat the snot out of somebody, break their arms and limbs, but don't kill them.
Yes.
You can kill them near death, but don't kill them.
Yes.
Good to know.
Anyway. Batman and I go way back. I mean, he's definitely Legos. I've been building with Legos since I was 3.
He's currently playing with some.
Yes. Batman Legos.
Batman Legos.
The reason I have Batman Legos is because ever since I was 10, I have wanted Batman Legos. To the point where I took my mother's soldering iron and formed a Batman helmet out of a knight helmet. I worked a hairpiece to look like Two-Face. And I remember actually taking little pieces of paper, drawing on faces and things to make the different characters. I wanted Batman Legos.
In a big bad way.
In such a bad way that even BJ commented it, actually. When he saw the commercial for these, like, hey, they got your idea. My friends knew. I mean, you look at my yearbooks, somebody actually wrote Batman Legos Forever from my senior yearbook.
That's funny.
If it's anybody that wanted Batman Legos to come out, it was me. And so the first thing I did when they came out is I bought them all up. Got Arkham twice. I was really happy about that.
And not only did you buy Arkham twice, but you also bought me as a present, I believe. I think you gave me Arkham as a gift.
Something like that. No, I gave you money towards it.
Yes, that's true.
I think so. I don't remember. But I do remember how excited I was. It was like meeting the girl of your dreams. I mean, it really was. I mean, finding out that Batman Legos is real, it was like my dreams were coming true. I mean, it's like, holy crap, how is this possible?
You can take something out of your bucket list.
Yes. I can take something out of my bucket list, actually. I never had a bucket list, but that was definitely... It was at such a point where the reason I went into engineering in college was because I wanted to work for Lego so I could design Batman Legos.
I know, you were...
Damn you, physics. Yeah, we don't need to get into that. But suffice it to say, I'm not in engineering, and I don't work for Lego, unfortunately. But
he's a big fan. So if anyone from Lego's listening, you have a big fan. And he has an idea for you because he's bitterly disappointed that you never made
I'm such a Lego fan. I plug Legos. I don't even work for Lego, and I'll help women find stuff for their kids when it's Christmas time. You know, put the different sets together. Like I remember one lady, she was getting like one of the battle packs, and it was like the Rebel one. I'm like, well, if you got to get the Imperial, you got to get the Rebel because they're good guys and bad guys.
He's talking about Star Wars Legos, just in case people aren't keeping up on that. Rebels and Imperials.
It's just one of those points. It's like I'm actually thinking about working at the Lego store, just because I love Legos that much. It's like I want to help people. And you'll get buy awesome Legos. And never mind the discount. Yeah, we don't need it. Obviously, there's that, but it's more than that. Especially when you get tired of frying chicken all day.
Yes.
But
one of the things he was
back to topic.
Yes, one of the things he was a little disappointed on is they never made a bat signal, a light up bat signal.
Yeah,
for the
what
Batman
was that?
Legos.
How hard was it to do Lego Gotham Police Department with a light up bat signal in Gordon?
Yeah,
and some cops.
Would have been nice, and they could have had a villain
and a guy in jail.
Prison. Yeah, it's a shame they never did that. And
I know.
What year did the Batman Legos come out?
2007.
2007,
I believe.
Okay, because I think it was after Dark Knight.
It was 2007. Right? No, it was before Dark Knight.
Before Dark Knight.
Dark Knight came out in 08. And yeah, Batman Legos came out in 2007.
Okay.
And so the first thing I did was I bought the Batmobile set. And that was the greatest thing about it. They at least had the intelligence to design the sets based on, most of them anyway, and for the first run, based on scenes from the movies.
Which is always fun.
Yes. Not some of the scenes they should have designed them from, but it's... I mean, seriously, what is up with the Bat go-kart?
Yeah.
And the Mr. Freeze dune buggy. When I heard that they were making a set with the Mr. Freeze vehicle, I thought, cool, they'll do a little Freeze-mobile and maybe like a Bat Hammer. Even though Batman and Robin sucks, it was visually entertaining, and they had some really cool designs. I'm like, hey, that'd be like a $50 set, get some good-sized vehicles. Maybe they'll actually do the spikes and you could push a button and they shoot out or something. No, they gave us a freaking Bat go-kart and a Mr. Freeze dune buggy.
You know, as silly as that is, the worst one, I feel, is one I ended up buying. Just because I like the character. Just because I'm a fan of Catwoman. I like Catwoman quite a bit. Nothing tops... And the thing is, Catwoman's vehicle, I can agree with. A cat-shaped motorcycle.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. Yeah. I can agree with that. But a bat dragster? Seriously now. A bat dragster. So if Catwoman makes a turn, he's screwed. Because he can't turn a dragster. Yeah. Those are made for going forward really fast.
Especially since motorcycles are very nimble and can make turns very easily.
So that baffled me. And like I said, I bought it because I wanted to get a Catwoman Lego.
The only thing that bothered me with the way that I think it was, they had a good start. They had the first lineup was great. They had Arkham. They had the Batcave. They had the Batmobile with a Two-Face truck or van. They had the Batwing with a Joker helicopter straight out of Tim Burton's Batman.
I think that one's one of the best, actually, in my opinion.
As far as design, yeah. The Batwing structurally wasn't very stable.
That and just iconic imagery. Like the Joker helicopter and the Batwing, that's really cool stuff.
Yeah, it was.
Granted, I do like the Tumbler. That's a neat one.
Yeah. But, they had a great start, and then they started doing
Bat dragsters.
Like Bat Dragster. Well, actually, the Bat Dragster was in the original lineup.
That's still silly.
It is silly, but I think the only reason they did that was because they wanted a cheap set, because I think it was only $10. They wanted a cheap set where you could get Batman and another villain, plus, a couple little vehicles. But they didn't really have enough buildings, and I think with Lego, they had such a success with Star Wars, and Star Wars sells great because it's vehicles. But Star Wars has a lot of vehicles in its universe. Batman doesn't.
Yeah.
Batman has a lot of iconic scenes, and I think they should, I always thought, hey, why not do a Joker's transformation set? Axis chemicals and a little breakaway wall for the Batmobile to bust through, and, you can have a little vat where you can drop Jack Napier and you turn it around and pop out Joker.
Yeah, and they've done that with Han Solo and Carbonite.
Yeah.
So it's doable.
It's doable. Some of these iconic scenes, that gave you more of a play set, because that's where Lego, regardless of what age you are, building a kind of play set area. When you're a kid, you work with small. When you're an adult, you just get bigger and bigger. But, having functionality to it makes it interesting. And functionality is one of the things that I've always appreciated about Batman. So much so that, this is segueing into another one of my fandom experiences. Dad, you've already explained to Mom this is all her fault. So, Mom, it's all your fault. After seeing the show and becoming a huge fan of Batman, I wanted a Batman costume. But it wasn't a Halloween, so you couldn't find one. And the movie, I don't think, had come out. At least, not Tim Burton's movie. I'm talking about the 60s show.
Okay.
I watched the 60s show on TV with Dad, got hooked, but I don't think the movie was out quite yet, or if it was, I know I hadn't seen it yet, and I wanted a Batman costume. The only way to get one was to make one. So Mom taught me how to sew, and I made one. I think. I remember making a mask and a cape. Out of blue felt, because, well, in the 60s show, Batman wears blue and gray. That has since then gone through many incarnations. One that I look back and I'm like, wow, what was wrong with me? I actually wore a pair of black tights, and I'm talking about dancing tights, not...
So like a leotard? Yeah,
only it was just from the waist down.
Oh, okay.
I had on, I believe, a black sweatshirt. Now this is after Tim Burton's movie came out, because this was officially licensed material.
Okay.
There was a plastic molded chest plate, which I wish I still had, but I sold it at a garage sale. It was the chest, it had the symbol and everything. Mm-hmm. It had a cape that came with it that velcroed on. There was a plastic molded mask, molded gauntlets, and I believe I just wore a pair of black gloves. But to top it all off, I proceeded to take a pair of gray underwear and wear it over the tights. Now, let's say I was probably 7 or 8. I think I was 8. No, it was 9.
That's even worse.
I know. The only reason I know I was 9 was because when I was 8, I went as a Ninja Turtle. That much I do remember. Thankfully, I learned my lesson from that, and let's see. 7 years later,
Yeah.
I did at least do an upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
I took a sweatsuit, all black sweatsuit. Now this was after Batman and Robin came out.
Yeah.
And I definitely appreciated the Batman Forever suit more, but the muscle tone design was similar. So I worked with that, and I basically just took fabric, painted it on, made a felt mask, felt cape. It was a fabric that just kind of had a leathery look to it, but didn't really have the feel. Made the mask, the gloves, and the boots. Ignored the briefs completely.
Yay!
After my last on that one. And I think I made I made the belt too. And it worked okay. And at the time I thought it was good. And since then I realized, wow, what was I thinking? Sweatsuit's not the way to go.
Probably got too hot real quick, huh?
Yes.
And if you're Batman, you don't want to be overheated.
No, but they keep putting it in black rubber. Speaking of costume designs and issues, part of the reason the Dark Knight's the suit for the Dark Knight was designed the way it was not just for the plot line, the fact that he needed to be lighter and faster, but also because Christian Bale said, you know what, Chris, I'm really sweaty in this thing. Can we design something a little cooler, something that I can wear all day when we're shooting, something that I can actually turn my head so I can see what's going on around me? And they just worked it into the plot line. So it's kind of a real life problems that they had to create a new suit, as well as the in-plot problems. They just kind of made it work for both.
Yes, when we talk about the Chris Nolan movies, we'll talk about that, because I know there's interesting stuff about the tumbler itself.
Yes.
So we'll get to that. So back to your costumes.
So back to costumes. Okay, so that was in high school. Then in college, I was always trying to come up with a better Batman costume. Something I'm still doing. But this
is kind of your life's work, right?
It is. You have to understand, when I was a kid, I wanted to be Batman. It wasn't enough to just be a fan. I wanted to be Batman. So much so that I remember in high school thinking, well, business management, because that's kind of what Bruce Wayne does. I actually did minor in business management, so... You
know what's funny? When I was a little kid, at the time, what my highest thing I wanted was?
What?
A lava lamp. That's all. I had no greater prospects than that. And I got one. I actually own two. So, hey, I doubled my prospects in life.
What kind of Batman?
A very mellow Batman.
Yeah, so I'm not emo enough, but... I'm not cute enough either. I'm not rich enough, definitely.
Yeah.
But anyway, so in college, I definitely wanted to look at, what it would take to make a better quality costume. Something that I felt like, just by looking at it, it's like, okay, I could believe that this person in this suit could be Batman. Okay. Now, it was the first time I'd ever done a project like this, certainly with the design that I had. So I actually branched out. Instead of just using regular fabrics, I decided, okay, I want to make this thing out of vinyl. Which is, if you're not familiar with what vinyl is, it looks like leather, but really it's like a plastic coating, but it has pores so it can breathe, and it's generally got a fabric backing to it. It's very affordable, generally $10 a yard or so, and you can find it at any local fabric store. And that was part of the draw, is it had the right look and feel, but it was affordable and I could acquire very easily. Mm-hmm. The other thing was, I really got tired of doing a Batman costume that was all black, because there wasn't enough change and variety to it. So I was like, I like the way, in the comics they use black and gray or blue and gray. In various incarnations they use different swapping in the color scheme. The nice thing about Batman is his suit never looks the same.
Yeah.
In fact, in some comics, like in The Dark Knight Returns,
yeah,
he has like 50 different suits for that one comic book.
So
you have a lot of variation and a lot of things to pull from. So from a creative aspect, I really like that, because I can draw from so many different things. And so when I was approaching this costume, one thing I wanted to do that was different from previous ones is I wanted it to fit to my body, not just be there, but I wanted it to conform to my body. I also knew, certainly at the time, and even now, I don't have a lot of muscle. I have some, but not much. So I needed to say, okay, how can I make myself look a little bit bigger?
So you had to pad up.
But not to the point where it's like, wow, he's got padding on. Enough so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So
enough to look like there's something there, but not enough where it's like, oh, he's
to
being
be obvious.
Yeah,
yeah.
He's going overboard.
So,
he's trying to be Arnold in a bat suit.
Yeah, which would have been interesting.
It would have been a weird.
Switch the roles. Arnold as Batman, George Clooney as Mr. Freeze.
That would have been weird.
Yeah,
but probably better. Now that I think about it, that would be awesome. Just like, oh, I know I'm watching a comedy.
This is why Superman walks alone.
See, at least you can do that.
Hello, Freeze. I'm Batman.
Let me see if I can pull a Clooney. Well, hey, Batman, I'm Mr. Freeze. Something like Sammy Davis Jr. No, not even that.
I'm surprised you didn't do an ice pun, actually.
It's very nice to meet you. Oh.
Anyway, so I did basically take, I think it was like half-inch foam. Something just very small. Put it on the chest and on the shoulders. And I had to work with the shoulder design a little bit because I was having trouble getting it to look normal.
Yeah, you didn't want to look like, the ladies who in the 80s where they had the shoulder pad things. Which thankfully is no longer there.
Yeah, thankfully.
I don't think they do that anymore.
I finally got the shoulder design to work so that when it's on, it looks good. And I was very happy with that. And it had kind of a molded look to it. And I was able to kind of quilt in. Yeah, I know I'm using the word quilt, but whatever. That's what it was. Because you had the 2 layers of fabric. I had those little sheets of foam. I did the abs in that and then sewed over it. And it worked pretty good. At the time, it was the best that I had had. I also did the other accents, like the mask and the gloves and the boots, all in vinyl. So it looked really good. And I added kind of a biker aspect to it. Like I made sure I used zippers for the gloves and the boots and even the mask. Mm-hmm. So it had a really neat look to it. And Steven was impressed by it. Which was like, yay, I got somebody who's actually on board with this.
Yes, we're mentioning a person that no one else knows, but our friend Steven.
That's okay.
Who may one day appear on a later show, because...
Yes, especially since he has a tie to this concept
yes.
And that actually created our friendship.
Yes, believe it or not, our mutual friend of ours, Steven, played a role in making us friends, because, you know... But we'll get into that much later.
Yes, we'll get into that much later, because that's the whole podcast in itself.
Yes, hopefully one that he's in.
So I gone through that incarnation, actually tested out trying to build my own belt. The belt actually is the hardest aspect of the costume to do. Trying to get it to sit on you and look a certain way and function, because it's a utility belt. Yeah, it's just a costume, but it's a utility belt. It makes sense. You need a place to hold your cell phone, your keys, your wallet.
If you're gonna have the title utility in your word, it's got to be functional, and obviously you can't get Batman levels where he's got microchips and all these other gadgetry, but
a lot of the gadgetry people have now with their iPhones,
it's true.
Is more gadgets than he had in the 60s.
It's true,
which is really impressive.
I mean, that's kind of the cool thing where like you can actually, considering the size of some of our technology, like take some of your average MP3 players, they can fit on your finger. They're so tiny. So it makes perfect sense that Batman can have equipment just like that, and it makes it very realistic to conceive, hey, he's got a gadget that tiny, and we can buy it, because this technology is actually at that level where we can have Batman gear.
Which is certainly a first for us, which just makes it even more exciting.
It does, but... So finish up your...
Anyway,
so that was your...
That was the I guess the third version.
That was Batman version 3?
Yes. Then we have version 3.5, where a couple years later, I took that same costume but made a few adjustments. Mm-hmm. I had incorporated, because originally that costume was just basically a shirt and pants, and the belt went over the bridge between the two, and a couple other things. And I was like, well, I don't really like how that looks, so I basically turned the shirt into a top where it actually came basically down over the crotch area so that it kind of held up better, so that it flattened down on the stomach area. Mm-hmm. And made a couple of other adjustments, I think, to the mask and so forth. So it looked a little better. But I still wasn't quite happy with it. And then I think what it was I guess a year or two later. It was the year before Dark Knight came out. I think that's spring.
Okay.
I had decided I really want a Batman Forever style suit. Regardless of minus the nipples, of course, because for some reason I never saw them. Everyone was up in arms about it. I completely ignored them.
I mean, we'll get to that too, but like, just for the record, I didn't care. So I was like, it's silly, it's kind of pointless, but whatever.
To me, I think maybe I just understood the fact that he's it looks like a person who's got painted black, whatever. I just ignored him. It never bothered me. I never paid it mind. I still don't pay it mind. So, but I really liked the way that it was very sleek, and I like the fact that it appeared at least that Val could move better in the suit. And that's one thing I liked about that design. And another thing about that design was the fact that from the gray suit, versions 3 and 3.5, I did have some difficulty moving my arms, especially moving them up. So one thing I definitely, and doing various movements, like if I wanted to do a squat or anything, any kind of martial arts move basically, was quite difficult actually in the gray suit.
So your aim for this new suit that you're going is you wanted to be able to move and function as if Batman.
Yes.
Because
I wanted to be Batman.
Because, in all realistic sense, if you're going to be a highly skilled martial artist and ninja-like, you're going to need to be able to move and be flexible. And unfortunately, that's kind of a flaw in some of the earlier costumes.
Yes. Especially the Michael Keaton one. He definitely had a lot of difficulty moving.
So that was your goal, was to make a more movable, functional suit.
And not only that, but more comfortable.
More comfortable, definitely.
So I looked at what I had accomplished with the gray suit. And actually, in between the two suits, I had made Stephen a Robin costume, but with a few alterations, primarily just in the ab design. Mm-hmm. And for those of you listening, it's really not that interesting, but basically I sewed the two pieces of fabric, or I cut out the ab shapes in multiple pieces of fabric, sewed them together as a normal seam, so that when you had them folded out, it looked like a crease, you could not see the stitching. So it looked better. And that was the main difference between the two. But another thing I had done was use different fabrics. I used a stretchable fabric as an underlaying for the new costume, which was going to be all black because it was initially designed as a Batman Forever style. I also had a gold oval behind the bat symbol, whereas the gray suit just had a straight black bat with no oval. As part of the design, in order to make it more mobile and more functional, I noticed that when I lifted my arm up, that I needed less restriction on the sections that I was using the vinyl, primarily on the chest, where the chest meets the arm and the shoulder area. So I looked at that, worked with that, minimized that as much as I could so that I had as much mobility. And it worked better, and I was very much more comfortable with it. And I did a little bit of redesigning with where the legs attached to the body, and realized that when you move your legs, like when you walk or when you sit down or anything you do with your legs, they function. I mean, it's a ball and socket joint just like your shoulder. So I said, what if I did the legs attached to the top or the main part similar to a sleeve design? And I tried that, and I actually found that it worked really well. Not only can you move better, but what kind of started this was I started thinking one day, because I was working on the design, I was like, why is it superheroes wear underwear over their pants? It's like, this doesn't make sense. So I thought, why not? I'm going to try it. See if there's any kind of valid reason why somebody would prefer to wear their underwear outside their pants. And there is an actual valid reason. It's because when you have your underwear over your pants...
You don't have to demonstrate because we're talking into a computer.
I know.
Just for the record, folks, he's standing up to show me what he's talking about.
it holds your pants up around your crotch so that if you go to move, let's say you do a kick, which Batman would definitely do.
Uh-huh.
Okay? If you do a kick, well, your pants are going to pull against each other. The legs, the section of fabric between the legs is going to pull, creating potentially less range for your kick.
Okay.
With the briefs on, it would get rid of that restriction. So it would be easier for you to do a kick.
Okay.
So I implemented that, not so much by putting underwear over the pants, because we realized before that was a bad idea,
Yes.
but in the structure of the suit. And I found that to work very well. And not only does the suit now more comfortable, it's more functional. We've also determined from DragonCon this past year that I can wear it for 16 hours without sweating or having a problem. And you can do martial arts in the suit. I've tested it.
Yes, and this is his current suit. Would you regard this as your current best?
Yes, it is my
in terms
current
of
best.
your body of work.
It is.
We went to DragonCon this year. It's a convention in Atlanta that we went to.
Yes.
And he also went to a book fair that was also having a superhero costume theme. And he's worn it those couple times, and it's gone over really well. It's really good quality.
And since tomorrow's Halloween, I plan on wearing it.
That's
There's
cool.
a couple modifications I need to make, so I'm going to try them out tomorrow.
We can post some pictures of Matt's body of work online.
Yes.
I may upload some pictures to the blog. If not, Matt will create his own because he does need a online portfolio.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea.
Because he did just make a costume for somebody and got paid for it. So.
Yay!
So that's definitely in his line of work in terms of...
I can actually say I officially make costumes for money now.
Yes, I mean, granted he wasn't the best Batman out there. There was definitely some that showed him up, but he was not the worst Batman.
No.
By far.
And the only reason that I wasn't the best was because some of these, you could tell that the people that had better costumes had the money to, get custom built parts made.
Yes. But for the homemade costume and plus getting it just from the fabric stores and things of that nature, I think it's a pretty good thing.
Affordability and acquirability are really the two main problems that most people have when they're trying to make a costume.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Matt, I don't really have anything to compare with all this stuff because,
That's okay.
I really can't make any of this stuff. I
don't expect.
Granted, I do enjoy Lego, but certainly not to the extent of you. And Batman Lego is not my fantasy. Although I was, to be honest and fair, I was ecstatic when I found out that there was Spider-Man Legos came out. I was quite happy with that because I'm a Spider-Man fan.
Yes. And one day...
Really wish they'd make other Legos for stuff.
Going back to the whole thing with the bucket list, one thing that I plan on doing, and I hope to accomplish before I die, is to make... But hopefully a decent 12-foot by 12-foot table of a Lego Gotham City.
And among other things, a Batmobile. a real working Batmobile.
Size, functional Batmobile built from scratch. And then that's something I do want to do. Obviously not in the near future. It's, after I have a home and I have a place where I can put the car. But certainly because I enjoy building things.
Yes, he's definitely a guy who needs something to fiddle with.
Yes. And the idea of being able to build and create my own Batmobile, which I know people out there have done. So this is not an unheard of concept.
Yes, definitely not.
But, I would definitely want to do something of my own design, not solely based upon one design. To kind of add on real quick about the most recent costume, while it started off as a Batman Forever design, it ended up as being a mishmash of different movie designs. For instance, while the main bodysuit is definitely designed from the Forever style, I currently have a Dark Knight style belt.
And plus you also have the Tim Burton-esque symbol on your chest still, right?
Well, actually, that was supposed to be a Batman Forever symbol, but it's kind of both. I didn't draw it as well as I'd wanted to, so...
Oh, well, I mean...
It's a classic Batman symbol. You can't go wrong there.
No.
And one of the two of the other things I did was the gauntlets. I actually, because at the time Batman Begins was out, I really liked the idea of the metal gauntlets. And while I can't work with metal,
you have insanely sharp plastic. Let me tell you something, folks. This is a story I have to tell. I know we're running a bit long, and we're going to have to talk about the movies in the next episode because we're running a bit long. But I have to tell you this story because it's a doozy. When we went to see Dark Knight. We went
midnight showing.
We went on the day it came out. Matt went and debuted his costume. I had no costume, so I wore the only thing black and comic book related, so I had a Venom shirt, so it was totally not appropriate, but it was the only thing I had. And and I got razzed for a little bit. That's the wrong genre. I'm like, I know. I didn't have anything else. But there was
we'll remedy that for the next one.
I know. There was plenty of other people in costume. A lot of interesting...
Jokers.
A lot of Jokers. A couple other characters. Surprisingly...
I saw Two-Face.
There was a Two-Face. Surprisingly, very few Batmans. And
I think I was the only one, wasn't I?
I think there was maybe one other person as Batman, but yours was by far the best costume out of everyone who showed up. Granted, there was definitely some really good Jokers there.
Yeah.
And even some dude dressed as a nurse Joker, which I thought was funny.
Yes, which is awesome.
And we even had a couple female Robins walking around, which I'm always happy to see.
Yes.
But one thing we discovered about these gauntlets was how pointy and sharp and painful they were, because I ended up sitting next to Matt in the theater, and you've all been to a movie theater. Those seats aren't exactly a distance, so I sit down, Matt sits down, 2 seconds later, pinch. Ow! What the heck was that? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, all right. Then I get stabbed again. I'm like, stabbage the cabbage. You're stabbing me with your gauntlet thingies, your wing things. I'm like, can you take those off? And you're like, no, they're taped on. I'm like,
No, it's not the fact that they were taped on, but I had,
they were like stapled on or something. They were on good.
No, it's the fact that I had designed them like they were in Begins, where you just pull them on over your arm. There was no closure or anything. So once you get them on, it's kind of like they're on. You gotta,
which may be a flaw in the design.
It requires some work, which I did fix actually, because there was version 4, there was version 4.1, then there's version 4.2 that I'm going to be making some corrections on tomorrow.
So while we're trying to enjoy this really awesome movie, the whole time I'm trying not to get hit by his gauntlets, because we're both
the entire time he's trying to enjoy watching Batman, he's getting attacked by Batman.
Yes, and as much as I'm trying to enjoy the movie, every time I'm trying to react, I have to be conscious to lean the other way so he doesn't stab me in the side, because it really hurt. Not enough to draw blood, thankfully, but it really, really hurt. So that was the last time I sat next to him when he was wearing that gauntlet.
Which is why, in the adjustments I made, which one of the adjustments I had made is, one of the things I was particularly proud of is I had to redesign the mask from scratch because I wanted it to look molded, even though I was just using vinyl. And I accomplished that. However, very much like in The Dark Knight, I wanted to move my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so I redesigned the mask completely. No, I shouldn't say redesign it, but I made an adjustment so that it would come directly below the neck. And I made it out of a different type of vinyl that was a little sturdier, so it had more of a molded look to it. And built the neck up from the body suit, and it worked really well. When I did that, I said, every time somebody sees a costume, they like it, they want to try it on, they can't get the gauntlets over their hands because they're different size than me.
Yep.
So I said, all right. Well, plus, actually, after the book fair, apparently somewhere between seeing The Dark Knight and the book fair, one of the spikes broke off on one of the gauntlets.
So you had to remake that anyway.
Well, here's the thing. The way it was designed, the only way you could fix it was to just remake it. And I was like, I'm not just going to remake one, because what if it's a little different from this one? So I just remade both of them. When I did that, I didn't make it one piece. But I did Velcro along the inside of the arm so that anybody could try these on. And not only that, they were much easier to get off.
So you're not stabbing
your friends.
Another thing he added as well was a zipper. One key thing.
No, a liquid evacuation system.
One key thing he forgot to add when designing the suit was...
Well, it's not so much that I forgot to add it. It's the fact that I knew, hey, if you're building a one-piece suit, you need to be able to go to the bathroom in this thing. Then I got making it and completely forgot about it. But I was only wearing it for like an hour or two at a time, so it wasn't a big deal.
Yes, but when you're walking
out
of
when we decided to go to Dragon Con, I'm like, I'm going to be in this thing for a whole day. Yeah. It was an easy fix, actually, so I wasn't too upset about that.
Yes, and thankfully it doesn't ruin.
And the best thing was nobody noticed it.
Yes, and
So
we've kind of gone over our limit a little bit, our time limit.
I told you this was going to happen.
I know, but that's fine because we covered quite a bit of ground, and I think it was very interesting to hear. So, next podcast will be dedicated to the movies, although we will touch on the different genres first, just real quick, because there is one thing I do want to talk about. It's a video game that people have played. Actually, a couple of video games people have played. And we'll talk about that next episode. So, before we go, just to bear in mind, the format will try to be once a month at minimum, hopefully two, so stay tuned. And I plugged the addresses, websites before. Again, special thanks to Songs Wear Pants Do for the theme song.
The content of the Freakacast is copyright to Andrew Felson and Matthew Puetz. Freakazoid, Batman, and all other characters belong to their respective owners. A full list of music used will be provided on the website. This podcast is for entertainment use only. Copyright 2010. By the way, no animals were harmed in the making of this podcast.
Freaks out!